I'm Bouris and this is Straight Talk.
What is great about the Australian sports fan, there is just this gross double standard. As long as you're playing well, I don't give a fuck what you do. But if you're out of form...
Well, then we've got issues.
We're coming for you.
We're coming for you in a big way.
If they score again, I'm fucking out.
What, stream over?
Yeah.
See you later? Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, kill it.
Kill it.
Send it. Turn it off.
Kill it.
Punters and Dribblers.
Welcome back to another episode of Hello Sport, the home of unqualified opinion, unwavering bias.
It's like a proper pub chat to me.
Yes, exactly.
Like it's like you're just shooting the shit.
The reality is we don't know what the fuck we're talking about.
I'll tell you this about the Philadelphia Fish, Tom.
Some people will say to us that was the best episode you've ever done, and sort of the metric for us is have we made each other belly laugh.
It's almost like the perfect entree burger.
We're not mates anymore.
Sorry.
Serious?
Like, what did you expect was going to happen?
Cheers, boys.
Oh, how dare you?
Oh my God.
That's rude.
That was disgraceful.
Ed Simpson, Tom Birmingham. Welcome to Straight Talk, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very
Way
much.
Too fucking long. Like, what's going on?
There's been a little bit of dancing around in schedule, hasn't there?
Totally. Because I'm not sure. I'm coming on your show. Am I coming on your show?
Yeah.
We hope. You hope.
I am. I wanted to.
Yeah.
I wanted.
Absolutely. We'd love to have you on.
Denon keeps talking me up, so I've got to get on there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. He does talk you up, Dan.
No, he talks me up big
Yeah,
time.
he's a big fan.
It's cost me plenty. No, he's a good guy.
He's
Good
a
guy.
great man.
Yeah, but I actually said to him, I don't mind telling you, I said to him, mate, you ought to go off to, and I actually introduced him. I said, you go and see Tai Tuivasa, like Bam Bam. I said, just fucking, you two merge your beers.
Mm.
So like have the two separate brands,
Yeah.
but you're sort of talking to similar sort of audiences,
Mm.
similar, not the same, characteristic wise. And because it's going to be hard to get out of that business with a quid, like a big dollar, unless you sort of merge the two things up and take it along to somewhere like, I don't know, Foster's or wherever, I don't know, one of these big buyers, say, whatever, because you've done the work for them.
Mm.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden you've got a buyer.
Yeah.
Because if you're hanging out for a buyer, probably the dudes from Better Beer are going to be the first guys out, cabs off the rank.
You would think so.
Yeah.
Because
They're
killing
going
it.
pretty
They're
well.
killing it.
They're going
They've got a
pretty well,
massive
the boys.
audience too.
Yes.
Massive.
I'd struggle to hold my nerve if like you're getting those valuations. I'd be like, I want to get out.
Oh,
Just get me out.
negotiations?
No, I'll
You-
just be like, just get me out. Whatever.
Yeah,
like, just get me
fuck
out.
Yeah,
You need
I'll
it.
take the dough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, the first offer that was dangled in front of me, I think, given what I've been reading in the AFR about Better Beer, I'd be like, I'd be selling now, to be honest.
Yeah, well, it mustn't be far off, but they've got to remember the big buyers. There's only a couple of them because the big buyers control all the brands.
Mm.
All the brands are owned by the same mob.
Yeah.
Two or three of them, you know, and they've all bought recently, or not so like over the last 12 months. So they bought Gingel's, Gingel and Mick Fanning and those. They bought their Bolter,
Yeah.
and they paid a big price for it. So their appetite in a couple of years will be ready to go again.
Mm.
They just come back in because they can't create these things. They
No.
can't set these things up. Just like, you know, radio stations can't set up what you guys have set up. You
Yeah.
know, you're not going to get a Foxtel, Channel 9, Stan, whoever. They're not going to set up a Hello Sport because it's not that easy to do. I mean, apart from finding the dudes to run it,
Mm.
which are you two guys,
Mm.
if they come along to you and they say, "We'll pay your salary to do this,"
Yeah.
they would have this sort of horrible feeling that they're losing money because
Yeah.
it's you know, whereas you're the owners of it.
Yep.
You say, well, fuck it, we own it. We're building value in the brand, in the
Yeah.
business. So we're probably happy to take a little bit less money. If you go as an employee to one of those places, it just becomes a mere impossibility. So over time, as you build your business, a bit like the beer businesses, they're immediately buyable. Someone wants to buy them.
Exactly. Like, I mean, it took us, 5 years before we started to see any sort of significant financial return?
Oh, that beef jerky sponsor in the
Well,
early days.
listen. It's
was
hard to put a
pretty
price
good.
on free beef jerky, Tom. I've always said that, but it doesn't put food on the table for you. Well, my wife doesn't like beef jerky, so it's not going to nourish her. But you got to sacrifice, right?
There's a lot of sacrifice.
Yeah.
And it takes, how many years you guys been at it now?
7.
7 years.
Yeah.
So, Tom, that must be I reckon you got the idea from me. Because, well, fuck you. I reckon, Hello Sport, I reckon I should have a part of this deal.
Okay.
And let me tell you what's happened here, right? So, my son, Nick Bouris, the origins of my podcast used to be called the Mark Bouris Show of all things. Nick came up with the idea, TMBS.
Very creative.
Yeah, very creative. And Nick is mates with Tom and a couple of other larrikins. And they were doing this sort of comedy skit thing, which is pretty fucking funny actually at the time. And we did the Uber thing, and we started up 8 years ago, and we invited him into our tent. And I reckon, and then he helped us with the Uber pitch. I remember standing up there at the park somewhere. I can't remember the dude's name, who was the Italian guy or the Greek guy, whatever his name was.
Sebo, Tullio Ranamakis.
Tullio Ranamakis, having a crack at the Greek community and of all fucking things.
Well, he's Greek, so
he's
that's
Greek,
play
so
on.
So I might be a bit
Play
more
on.
sensitive to that, but to me anyway. But anyway, I reckon they got the idea. Now tell me, where did the idea come from?
For the podcast,
Yes.
well, to be honest, after the podcast with you that I was on, I was almost a little bit scarred because I came in with Seb. Like, I was involved in the creative side of Streets of Sydney, but I don't know anything about like filming or camera work. And that was 90% of the conversation. So it was like the two guys from Streets of Sydney. I just basically sat there and didn't say a word the whole time. And as it just kept going, I'm like, Jesus, am I just like going to have to come in here and pretend I know what I'm talking about? But I think the origins of it was we were just at uni together.
University.
We were at school together, but we didn't. He was a year below me. We didn't know each other that well. Like, we knew of each other. But at uni, we were sort of like forced because there wasn't that many people. It was in Bathurst, and
Make it sound like an arranged marriage.
yeah,
mate.
well, it sort of was at some point, at least at the start.
Yeah.
Now we love each other.
Yeah, we do now.
But we would just always find each other, like, you know, we'd corner each other at like a party or whatever. And we'd just be like screaming at each other about sport, which, I mean, I'm glad we've been able to sort of curtail the aggression that we probably started with a little bit. But
Well, it depends. If it's late at night, it's probably still there.
Yeah,
so,
that's
you
true.
A few beers.
yeah,
Few beers,
yeah.
and we're sort of.
Where's my beer? Have I
I think that's yours there.
That's mine there.
Yeah. Okay,
Well,
well.
by the way,
Mm.
Resh is the beer we drink around here. Now, I grew
Love
up
it.
drinking this shit.
Yep.
And in pubs, that's what it was. That was the slogan.
Resh is refreshing.
Resh is refreshing.
Yeah, the beer we drink around here.
I still get around.
Oh, that was the
Reshes.
old.
That was the
beer.
old. That was the old thing. Cheers, boys.
Oh, how dare you, Edward.
Cheers,
Oh
mate.
my god.
That's rude.
That was disgraceful.
Sorry,
What school
boys.
was that?
Yeah.
I don't one of my sons. Went there.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, I know it's probably a little self-indulgent when you think that, oh, geez, because we can chew each other's ear off late at night, then we should do a podcast. But that's what we did.
Other people need to hear this.
Other people need to hear this. That's
Well,
right.
now people think they've got to do a podcast because they've got a business. I better do a fucking podcast.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
yeah, I know.
But then you did it for fun.
Exactly.
It's
That's
exactly
the
what
idea.
it
Let's,
is.
we got something to talk about,
Mm.
and it's interesting. We
Yeah.
think it's interesting. You think it's interesting. Let's do it. Is that how sort of?
That was basically it. I mean, we'd mused about doing a podcast at uni for years and never got it off the ground. The furthest we went was we went and got our like radio license. I don't even know what that was.
Well,
but
that was, I think, from the uni, right?
You're
Like
right.
they would say it was the degree was, I did a commercial radio degree, but like you were able to go on air. So you had to get a license for it. I thought the earliest thing was almost like, didn't you find some notes in your phone from like 4 years before you even started a podcast with like topics we'd been musing about while driving? And they were just like, I'm glad I can't remember any right now.
I
don't
can
know if
remember
you-
some of them. Just very odd stuff.
Very odd.
very, very odd
So
stuff.
you're in your 20s. You would have been your late, early, mid,
Early.
Early,
Early
yeah,
20s,
early,
yeah. We
early.
used
So
to
you're
drive.
like 32 or something,
34.
right? 34. You're around that territory.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
We used to drive back to Sydney together almost every weekend, and we would just sit in the car and talk shit, and we'd write notes. And I found some of these notes of like topics that we thought would be funny for a podcast. Some really out there stuff that may have inferred a state of mind at the time, but we just sort of we left it for a couple of years, and then when we moved back to Sydney after uni, we weren't catching up as much as we probably would have liked, and so it was an excuse for us to meet up and shoot the shit and hang out, really, more than anything.
And why sport? Like, what's the bent around sport for both of you?
Mate, we love it.
Yeah, it's just
probably the
that's it. Like it's
Yeah.
just it's very it's obviously interesting and engaging, but there is, because at the end of the day it is just sport. There's almost something funny about talking about when people talk about it with like ultimate sincerity and earnestness and seriousness, and like, you know, that it can be so over the top that there's something funny in that, in about taking something that's not very serious super seriously, but in like you're just trying to make each other laugh.
Are you saying sport is serious, but you guys in your show don't take it seriously, sort of semi take the piss, or is it around the other way?
It's a bit of both. So we take it seriously. We're huge Manly Seagulls fans, or we're huge New South Wales Blues fans when they lose,
or huge Australian
or huge
fans,
Australian
obviously
fans in the
Ashes on.
cricket. So
Yeah.
like we are massive sports fans. But then the other side of it is when something goes wrong or there's some minor controversy or whatever, like, you know, that it can just be completely blown out of proportion, or the seriousness that someone can take to us is funny in the way that we would talk about it with each other, like the way that we would dissect what some scandal is or a team that's not going well and why aren't they going well, and just finding these ridiculous avenues to explain it through our lens.
Yeah, weird tangents. We've always just taken a topic and somehow just had a bit of fun with it.
We're trying to make each other laugh, but it's not. It's kind of weird because I don't feel like a comedian or someone being. It's just that we're trying to make each other laugh. But then also, we might get through a podcast where we haven't really belly laughed or anything, but people still seem to enjoy it. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes I don't. Sometimes
some people will say to us that was the best interview, best episode you've ever done, and Tom and I. Sort of the metric for us is have we made each other belly laugh? Like, you know, when you laugh so much you start crying. That's what I sort of do it for, really. Like, obviously it pays the bills now, but that's what was the main reason we did it, was to make each other laugh. But, you know, things are funny to different people, which was sort of found out along the way. So it doesn't always need to be a bent over laughing sort of situation. But
remember your first one?
We do.
we've got it recorded, don't we?
We do. We called it Pipe Dreams because it was a pipe dream at the time, and it was sitting on an old dining room table. We had the paper open. We recorded it on GarageBand. Audio was horrendous. We didn't release it, but we listened to it a couple of years ago, maybe.
Mate, I think we listened to it last year.
We were quite impressed with ourselves,
and which was also kind of concerning. It was like we either like were okay back then, or we just haven't improved at all over the 7 years. Like our tagline's the home of unqualified opinion, unwavering bias. So like we're not trying, we say it at the start just to sort of set the tone of like, this is two guys who don't know anything, who you shouldn't be, you know, their opinions shouldn't be taken seriously. And we just are here to talk shit about the things that you might be also talking about with your mates.
Yeah. I mean, we don't, the reality is we don't know what the fuck we're talking about. We're just talking. And I think a lot of the time, especially in Australia, you know, like, unless you played 20 origins, then you're not allowed to talk about sport,
Yeah, that's
right?
a good
So
point.
Matty Johns the other day said, you don't have to be a baker to know the bread tastes good. So when he had that biff with Joey. But like that idea generally, I think, permeates throughout all of Australian society. Basically, if you didn't play rugby league, don't fucking talk about it. So the way that we sort of circumnavigate that is to say, we don't know what we're talking about. We're honest about that. In fact, we say it several times a podcast. So you can't really get pulled up on things if you lay the foundation.
Not yet anyway.
Well, you're not putting yourselves out as experts.
Exactly right.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
You can get pulled up for
experts
other
in.
things.
But you do get experts in.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
You get great guests. I mean, one of your first ones was Anthony Watmar.
Yeah, that was the one that that was one of our earliest I guess elevations or transition periods where it was like we had 200 people listening a week, and then he came on and he was like, how controversial do you want me to be? He hadn't said anything about his departure from Manly and all that. We were just like very green there. We were just like, we weren't even going to ask you about it. So like, just say whatever you
There's no
want.
way. I wasn't going to ask Anthony Watmar about him and Cherry Evans. No way. But he came in pumped up and was like, fucking ask me about it. Like, no problem whatsoever.
And I'm like, so again, none of what we try to do, especially with interviews, is like trying to get anything out of, you know what I mean? Like we're not trying to get you to say something messed up that we're going to go and run. If you want, you say whatever you want, you will cut anything out you want. He was just super keen to go for it. And we're sitting around the table and he's like, Jerry Evans is a fuckwit. And I'm just like kicking Eddie under the door. I'm like, oh my God, dude, I can't believe what he's saying here. And I just knew, I worked in radio at the time, so I just knew it was going to pump. I just knew as soon as we released it, someone was going to pick it up and it was just going to go. And it did. And so then after that, we had like, I mean, it wasn't even a huge increase, but it like took us from 200 listens a week to like 800 listens a week.
Maybe 1,000. It was a bit of I think we crossed over that 1,000 threshold, which was big for us at the time, massive. And Anthony was great because he would get called from journos and they wanted him to give him a quote, and he said, nah, Hello Sport exclusive. So they always had to quote us.
Yeah.
But at least most media companies were good enough to quote us. Some just said a podcast, but
Yeah, but they're not going to, because they're not going to give you a leg up.
No.
fucking
but
way.
some did.
Some did,
Some
yeah.
did.
Some did, and they like ran our audio and like all that sort of stuff. But it was on, I think it was on 9 News, and they didn't quote us, and we were like, those bastards.
Yeah, it's funny. You just reminded me of something, because I remember many years ago when I had the Mike Bouris show, business partner of Nick Fordham. Fordo is good mates with Joe Hockey. I'm good mates, but not as close as Nick is. And he said to me, oh, Joe's going to resign as treasurer, and he's going to announce he's got a job, and he's going to resign on Friday. He said, this money. He said, you want him to come on the show? And I said, Mark Bouris, we used to film those days Tuesday morning at 6:30 up at John Ibram's premises up there at the Cross. Serious. Yeah, that he built for Cole Sandilands, but Cole never used it. Anyway, and I said, yeah, cool. I knew Joe. I was like, yeah, bring him in. And it was like breaking fucking news. Like Joe announced his resignation on our show. Like it was fucking mental. And then also announced that he was going to take up the ambassador job in Washington for Australia.
Gave you the full scoop.
Well, what the fuck? So we brought him down here to this building where I own down in Darlinghurst. There's a cafe, and we got the camera set up. We got him sitting there and talking about it after. And anyway, the Sydney Morning Herald picked it up and quoted our show. They'd said, breaking news, Joe Hockey, treasurer of the country, has announced his departure from being treasurer and taking up the ambassador role in Washington on this show called The Mark Bouris Show. I couldn't believe it, front page of the paper, what the fuck? And but it works.
It's also something where it's like, so that was 4 years in, I think, that happened. So we'd been doing it for ages. And
Serious?
Like 30 listens we would get.
We were stuck on 30 listens for years, man. Years and years.
So then when something like that happens, it's like, oh, this is a really cool thing that happened. Although I was also a little torn because I love the Seagulls and it was like really negative Seagulls press. So I was like, Jesus Christ.
You're not like, it's not as if you're trying to change society. I mean, you're trying to add entertainment to society. How do you keep yourselves going? Like, do you rely on each other or what happens?
In those early days, genuinely, I think it was like I would rely on him. He would probably rely on me. But we were just doing it honestly because it was fun. Like, and I would enjoy doing it. Like, I would enjoy getting in on a Monday night and having a laugh with Tom. I always enjoyed doing that. That hasn't changed, but that's probably that would have been what got me through 30 listeners.
Yeah.
Live shows way too early when no one turns up. Like, just that grind after 4 or 5 years. And we do it, sometimes we have to do it 7:30 in the morning on a Monday. When you're in your 20s, you're having big weekends. Like that was tough going. And when you're just not seeing
the podcast,
Yeah.
from being out all night.
Exactly. But when you're not seeing any growth, it didn't frustrate me, but it does make you think that this is probably just going to peter out eventually.
Yeah. I think one of the reasons that I was like, the thing that kept me going was that we just kept getting 30 listens every week. We never promoted it. Like we're very sort of like, not shy, but sort of almost too self-conscious to like put it on our own personal Instagrams and like tell everyone about it. The most we do is like share it to a group chat or something with your mates and go like, have a listen. But your friends are actually a good barometer of like whether you're doing something good or shit. Like they will listen to it once, maybe twice, or they'll come and see your band play once or twice. If they don't vibe it, they're not going to, they're not going to indulge you unnecessarily. I may have been in a band once and my friends didn't come. But they just kept coming back. They just kept coming back and listening to the podcast. It was only 30 people, but it was like, we're not pushing it.
Yeah.
And
they didn't have to listen.
And again, I think like I've always respected my friend's sense of humor. And like, so just the fact that they liked it, I was like, there's just something there. I don't know what it is. It's not like taking up heaps of our life doing it. And it was fun. So
at least from my perspective, if I've got something on my mind, or if let's say there's the Ashes on, I need to talk to someone about it. Like I need to get my opinions off my chest. I'm extremely opinionated. My friends can attest to that. I'm the guy that bails people up in the corner at a night out, just, let them know what I think about a certain topic. So
like now you'd be talking about the Ashes at the moment.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah. I'm more a footy fan than I am, say, cricket. Who was some of your favourite league guests?
Rabs, definitely.
Rabs
is the man.
It's
the
like,
voice of rugby league,
the
obviously.
voice.
So like my earliest rugby league memories are Ray Warren. My favourite rugby league memory is actually my favourite Rabs memory is when he called Newcastle beating Manly in 96 or 97. Like, I just think, again, obviously Manly lost, but it was like the most perfect call.
Was that Darren Albert?
Yeah, Joey and Albert.
Joey went blind.
And Darren Albert, Joey would have been blind for a month.
Well, he went blind and then got blind.
Yeah.
But he scored a try. I think Darren Albert scored a try in that game. Yeah.
Yeah, he was in the last second of the game.
Yeah, he's correct.
Joey goes blind, back to Darren Albert, and it's just like the way he does it. His voice is like almost when it's just its best, throaty best.
Yeah, that was a
And-
high watermark for sure. Because he's revered, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like so well respected. I don't get so nervous now with our guests. I've been doing it for so long, but I got nervous with him, like for sure.
Mm.
And when you just hear him speak, like Jesus,
Yeah.
it's my childhood in a room, you know.
Well, you know what's funny about him? It makes you nervous because he said to me, because we had him on here last couple of weeks ago. He said to me, "Oh, do you know who I really respect as a good interviewer?" Like, that's before the show started. Michael Parkinson.
Oh, God.
What the fuck? Like,
One of the greatest interviewers of all time.
Arguably the
here I
greatest
am
ever.
about to interview. Like, you put Michael Parkinson in front of me. Like, what the fuck? Like, I mean, that was like really wrong foot of me. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
felt like I was standing there with James Tedesco running at me, just turning left. And I didn't even see it. You know, like he just stepped to my left. He's a phenomenon.
Yeah.
He really is.
Yes.
What about in terms of players?
Well, we did Matty Johns the other day.
Yes.
Like
He's a gun.
he's unbelievable.
Great.
He could
How
talk.
smart is he?
Oh, mate.
Yeah.
His retention,
Mm.
ability to retain information that can go back 20, 30 years about singers,
Mm.
players.
Film, travel,
Film,
like
like,
everything. He's
fuck.
constantly like, it was what made it cool to talk to him as well. Like, they're also the best people to chat to where it's like, you don't even need to give them that much and they just
Yeah.
go and you just sort of, they're really good at sort of, I guess, emptying their mind and expressing themselves clearly. And he was great at that. He was obviously like, as a footy player, it was great. Like his footy brain is also incredible. So like where we, one of our, probably the areas we lack the most is footy nous, I'd say.
X's and O's.
X's and O's, not our strong suit.
Not our strong suit.
Nor do we want it to be. But
Nor could it ever be.
nor
right?
could it ever be. But hearing someone like him, again, really clear and really like he's able to sort of get his points across really well.
His interrogation of the game and players and structures.
Yeah.
Him and Cooper Cronk.
Mate, that's our favourite show.
And my favourite show too.
Oh, there you go.
By a country
apart
mile.
from your show.
No, of course, and yours.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course. Well, it's there, yeah.
But that podcast, Maddie's podcast with Cooper,
Yeah.
that is a must watch for me.
It's like the best rugby league content out there. Like
they
it's
just unpick it,
yeah.
and it's more Maddie asking Coops what he thinks.
Yes.
And but Coops' ability to unpick things like it's just ridiculous.
Mm.
No wonder Melbourne won and Roosters won because like he's like having an on-field strategist.
Yeah.
Apart from his skill, normal skill, his
Mhm.
ability,
Yeah.
Yes.
he's just looking at shit and fucking and probably he's researched it too. Probably. Have you had him on your show yet?
No, we want to get Cooper on. We definitely
love
want to
to.
have him on. We'd love
But
to.
but that's our favorite podcast as well. Just an absolute rugby league nerd out where you're just getting like an insight into these two rugby league geniuses. It's incredible. There's nothing else like it. Really.
And they explain themselves really well. Like they make it digestible for the dribbler.
100%.
Yeah,
Common
totally.
man.
Yeah.
That's normal. That's me.
Yes.
I'm the dribbler.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
And but like, mate, it's a pretty uncool thing to be sitting there at like, I think it's on different times, like between 8 and 9 on whatever night of the week it is, and you're the most boring fuckhead in the world. So look at that, Matty Johns and Cooper Cronk talking.
My
talking
wife,
about-
I'll have the iPad on my chest burning a hole into me, and I'm just sitting there like when Steph's like, just what are you doing? Like,
What's wrong with you?
don't
mate?
judge me.
Matty Johns and Cooper Cronk.
Yeah.
Come on. You know the drill. We said to Matty though when we interviewed him, we go, because last year they would do it ad hoc. It was sort of on and again and off again. I said, you can't do that to me, mate. It's got to be out every week of
Yeah.
the rugby league season.
Please.
Otherwise, I'll have a breakdown. I just need it.
Well, it is now.
Yes,
Yeah,
now it is.
thank
Yeah,
God.
yeah.
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 I mean, it must be one of their lead shows. I reckon everybody's sort of saying what we're saying. I reckon that's. I mean, I'm happy with Brace doing a great job, but like it's the shows looks like they're struggling to put people on there. Like like because with that, what's his name,
Kenty.
Kenty. But sort of the whole structure's changed.
Yes.
and it's not. I just don't. They've got to have to restructure it. I think. So,
Yeah, and I feel a bit sorry for him in that sense, in that like, the mid-season shuffle, and you're like, I assume that they've just gone, we just need like a stopgap for the remainder of the year. Let's just try and get through this year and then see what happens.
Yeah. Everyone loves Gordy. Let's get him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Gordy's
yeah.
good. We'll get him in there to fill in the seat, but like it's definitely different. I don't mind it though, to be honest. I still enjoy consuming it, although like this time of year I'm a little bit like rugby league sometimes, especially when you're in it like we are. This time of the year I find myself like not caring as much about some
Why
of
is
the
it because
like,
Origin?
I think Origin is it's a weird one, right? Like it makes all of the shows that we do around sport a little bit like not different. Well, listen, if the series was alive and well, it might be a different story. But I think it just makes the regular season games a bit whatever. Like all the bye rounds and stuff, and all the players
too
are
many.
out. you're not as the games aren't as good and the interest isn't as good because your best players aren't playing.
Yeah.
So you sort of reach a bit of a
Yeah, I think it's like at the start of the year, you're absolutely frothing. Footy's back. How good's this? Then you get to the Origin period, and the NRL itself, the NRL competition, really peters out. Obviously, like all the big guys aren't playing. There's buys every week.
And
It
injuries.
just yeah,
Injuries as
exactly.
well,
Injuries.
yeah.
It's just a bit lackluster. I think when you start heading back towards finals, it picks up again, and it's great.
Like week 24, 25.
Yeah.
Heading into the
Yeah,
last
yeah.
game like the Roosters against Souths or something like that.
100%.
Like
yes.
that's when it starts to amp up from my point of view. And mind you, it's not going to be that great for us. We're coming like 13th or 12th.
Tough.
Not a great season for both of us, really.
Yeah. Well, mind you guys are better. That game between us and you guys, I'll be honest, it was average.
Oh yeah. It was,
It was
tough.
hard to watch.
It was a tough one.
It
was
was.
frustrating.
Well, like the commentators were getting all sort of excited about, if I'm close, but it was an average game.
Yeah.
Between two average teams.
Mhm.
I'm sorry
No,
to
mate,
my
like-
Roosters mates, but like it just was an average game.
For us, like our tries came from intercepts and like just some real arsey chip kick from Ruben Garrick. Like it was all very like chaotic.
And everyone's trying their hardest.
Yes.
But it seems like some teams like us, Manly, and a few of the Canterbury, fuck me, and West Tigers, unfortunately. I mean, we're all struggling to find form. How do you guys in your show, Hollow Sport, how do you make it interesting for anybody?
Like we always get people hitting us up going, why aren't you talking about the Warriors? And I feel bad because I'm like, the Warriors, like they're playing well this year, but sometimes there's just not they're a bit out of sight, out of mind, or there's not something happening. So it just sort of depends, I think. Like with the Bulldogs, for example, like they're in the news that like they tried to offer Tino $4 million and like a slice of the pub. And like that was funny to us because it was like, what else can you sort of just weasel in outside the cap? Like you to get a piece of the fucking...
Yeah, you're going to start offering up pubs to sweeten the deal. I think
surely a pub sits outside the cap, right? You know what I mean? Like
the easiest way to think about it, I think, is like we don't sit there and go through every game and dissect it. Again, it's just not our cup of tea, and quite frankly, we're not that interested. So
It's like a proper pub chat to me.
Yes, exactly.
Like it's like you're just shooting the shit.
and maybe dial it up a little bit, like
Yeah.
just
You
put a
need to
little
amp it up a
bit,
bit.
put a little bit of mayo on it.
Yeah.
I would say. Obviously, the Ashes is important, but it's sort of funny by acting like it's the most important thing of all time, and that if we don't get a win over in England, then put a fork in me because I'm done. There's no point in going on anymore.
That's sort of the really fickle nature of like, the Aussie sports fan.
Send him home.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly.
Send him home.
He hasn't
and
hit
not
a fucking
business
run.
class. Get him
Yeah,
in
yeah,
economy.
get
Or
him- get
check
him
him
down
in
the
his
back.
baggage. The thing is, we also have genuine opinions on there as well. So like, I know it seems like if something is worthy of a serious opinion, so like last year with the Manly Pride saga jerseys thing,
yep.
right? Like that was something that we felt we needed to actually talk about sincerely. It's not something you're trying to make fun of. And
what did you say?
well, so we said that obviously, well, we feel it's obvious, but like in the context, we felt like it was worth mentioning that we are completely supportive of LGBTQI
Plus.
plus, and that we've got friends who are gay and whatever. And like, it's just, there's absolutely no, but we felt like it was unfair to the players that are Islander and very heavily religious to just not even run it by them. Like,
Yeah.
or not even know, like, what did you expect was going to happen?
Yeah.
That was where we were just like, what did you expect was going to happen? And I think, and it felt like it was a disservice to the cause to be so thoughtless about what then became a shitstorm and probably made people of that community feel even worse than if there had been a bit more of a thoughtful approach to it.
Yeah, it felt a bit rushed, at least to us.
Well, it
in
was
the
also a
sense that
women in league
They
round.
hijacked the women in league round
Yeah.
to sort of push this narrative. I mean, I can't be for sure that this was what they were thinking, but it did feel like they just wanted to be the first to market, and we're the first rugby league side to openly support the community. It just felt a bit grubby's not the right word, but a bit
Virtue signaling, yeah,
disingenuous, almost a bit
disingenuous, yeah.
virtue signaling.
Do you think rugby league clubs, that's obviously come from management. It
Mm.
wasn't the players who concocted all this
No.
stuff. It would have been management, someone coming up with a clever idea, but they thought it was a clever idea, maybe genuinely led, but ill-conceived.
Yes.
You know
I
what
think that's probably
and badly executed.
Yes.
But do you think clubs have a role in social issues?
I think it's hard to separate the two as much as people would like to. it just sort of feels like, there's too many things, because if you were to take that approach, there'd be no, Indigenous round, which isn't fantastic.
No NRLW.
No NRLW, no Anzac round. Like these things where it's like you can't be so gung-ho about Anzac round, which is a fantastic round, and then be like, keep politics out of sport.
I think that an easy way of thinking about it for me is, if you're going to do a round or, try and support a cause like that, then you need to go all in on it, right? So the fact that they didn't even get, who's the ex-Manly player?
Ian Roberts.
They didn't even get Ian Roberts in
totally.
to talk or support or, even educate the players about what it means to be a gay man playing rugby league. I just feel like if you don't even lean on Ian Roberts in that situation, are you just putting a rainbow flag on a jersey? Because that's what it looks like, whereas with the Anzac Day, it's all in, there's a lot of remembrance. They've got the bugle, there's like a procession, there's marching. I know that the players go and talk to, retired servicemen and women, all that sort of thing. With the Indigenous round, it's very involved. Obviously, Indigenous players, go back and speak about, their families and their culture and all that sort of thing. It just feels like it's a bit more, they make it more important and rightly so. But then with things like with other causes, particularly with the Pride Round saga, it just felt a bit rushed and a bit.
Clubs aren't really built to sort of play that role.
You're probably
they can
right.
play into the role, but they can't play that role.
You're probably right.
They can't take the lead.
No,
agree.
Even with clubs with the Anzac Day, they don't always nail that, as
No,
evidenced
totally.
by the West Tigers this year.
Yeah.
Totally.
With the
Exactly.
US troops. So
Clubs find it hard enough just to recruit players and keep players and keep them on the paddock
win footy games.
and win footy games.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, I'm dying for some opinions here. Which club do you think has recruited the best?
It's the Storm, probably, always come to mind in terms of recruitment.
Well, yeah, they've kind of lost a few though recently.
Well, it depends what time frame you're talking about.
Well, the last couple of years.
Last couple of years?
Who's a standout? Like, who the fuck's got it right?
I mean, like last year, it felt like the Cowboys had, where they bring in Chad Townsend and Tom Dearden, and you're sort of like, and even Scott Drinkwater, I think, had come up from the Storm maybe like a year or so before. And you were like, Chad had won a comp, but people probably didn't think he was the man who did, and everyone was like, Dearden might never play rugby league, NRL anyway. Like, he didn't really get the job done at the Broncos.
But how good is he?
He's amazing.
It's
And then you've got like Nanai, who's like, no one, he's 18, no one ever heard of him. Ruben Cotter, like, I know, to be honest, you could argue they still have been fantastic with their recruitment, but they sort of like came out of the blue. But the Storm would have been, but the Storm feel like they've kind of dropped the ball a little bit recently with who they've
Well, I mean, they've
recruited.
re-signed well. You could say that for sure. Obviously, they got Jerome Hughes locked down. They got Cameron Munster locked down. They got Harry Grant locked down. So they've re-signed well, but they were already at the club. In terms of new signings, it hasn't gone well. But I look at the Bulldogs and I'm like, you've signed some great players.
Yeah.
Like, it hasn't really clicked yet, but they've got Stephen Crichton coming next year. They've obviously got Kikau. They've got Matty Burton, who's an absolute beast. Reed Marnie. Like, on paper, they've recruited well.
Bronson Cherry.
Josh
He's
Adokar.
been out for a few
a couple
years,
years.
but like he
Josh
seems to be
Adokar as
like,
well.
he's been, I was following him on the gram. He looks like he's still as fit as ever.
I reckon.
Training with
I
Roger.
reckon-
Hopefully not for the same reasons.
No.
You'd hope not. Good Lord.
We had some interest in him at one stage.
Well, mate, he's quick.
And he's a body too. Like,
Yeah.
he can, he can do some good defensive work. Who do you think is the greatest coach of all time? And everyone's got an opinion on this.
I think it's Wayne. Like, it's an obvious one. I mean, well, Bellamy's good as well, but Wayne just seems to have been able to do it in so many different places, right? Like, everywhere he's gone, he's been able to find success.
He went to St George. He
Went
the
to St
grand
George, he
final.
won
They
it.
beat us in 2010.
Yeah.
He turned the game around at half time. They were, for all money, gone. St
Mm-hmm.
George, Roosters winning. Whatever the fuck he said in half time, they come out and they won the fucking game.
Yeah.
And he's got this ability to get people to play for him. Then he
And
went
then he
from there
met the
to
Knights,
was
Newcastle.
St George and Knights. After.
But Newcastle,
They made a set.
they made the
prelim.
semi. No, they made the
prelim.
set. It was the one to make the grand final.
prelim,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. Sorry. But like,
the
you sort of
Dolphins.
forget about that. And then, like, well, then he went to South, took them to the grand
Yeah, that's
final.
right. I forgot about that.
Then to the Dolphins, who everyone was like betting on what round they'll ever
Dolphins
win.
were last.
Yeah.
In my money.
Yeah.
I thought, there's no way. They haven't been recruited that well.
And
they got-
you'd almost say they have now in hindsight. Like, obviously it's easier to say now, but like you look at someone like the Hammer and you're like, how the fuck did anyone let him go?
Totally.
It's
I know.
insane.
He's turned him into an absolute beast. Like,
Yeah.
And now it just seems so obvious. Whereas at the start of the year, you're like, oh, Jesus, Hammer. If someone had told you at the start of the year that he'd be playing Origin and dominate, you just go, you wouldn't believe him. But that's the Wayne effect as well. So Wayne goes in, a couple of years ago, with one of the worst Origin sides ever, beat us when we're sort of at our peak. I think that was
the
just.
year he brought back Alfie Langer?
No. Well, he did that as well. We're talking like
I'm talking
2020.
about 2020
Right,
when we
yeah,
won
yeah,
two
yeah.
in a row.
Worst
We're
team in
dominating,
history.
worst team in history, and then, or one of the worst teams. He comes back and wins that. He's just got this innate ability. And so I suppose it depends on what you value, right? Do you think that it's more impressive that he's bounced around all these different clubs and had so much success? Or do you think that it's more impressive that Bellamy's built that system that just continually spits out results? Like the stats on them having not finished in the top 4, it was just ridiculous. Like the streak they're on, the final streak.
Yeah.
they've had.
Well,
But
exactly.
they get those, but they isn't that part of it, right?
Well, when you but
Isn't
when you
part
think
of
about
getting them in through
I'm not
the
sure.
system?
That's why I'd like to know your view. I mean, like you look at that period, Cronk, Smith, Slater,
Inglis,
Oh,
Falau.
but just with those three.
Those three, yeah.
What?
But they were all what at least I think you got to respect is that they got them all in before they were anything, you know. And I'm pretty sure Smith was not wanted at the Broncos. Billy Slater was this tiny little jockey who everyone was like, and Cooper Cronk was not good enough. And then it's like they come down there and whatever it is Bellamy does, however he, either teaches the game, but also like instills some sort of confidence or work ethic in players. You're like, no one seems to be able to get that sort of response out of people.
It's unbelievable. And then you've got like Nico Hines, who was unwanted by Manly. He goes down there, comes out an absolute beast, goes to Sharks, wins a Dally M. Like Jerome Hughes is unbelievable. Munster's unbelievable. Grant's unbelievable. Pappenhausen, when he's fit's unbelievable.
Unwanted at the Tigers. Brandon Smith, love the cheese.
Love
the cheese.
I mean, it's almost like you go in there and you have one of the great glow-ups of all time and you come out. They don't always have success when they leave is the only other thing.
Yeah,
as well.
Smithy's sort of struggling a little bit with us, but he's had injuries.
He's had injuries for sure.
He hasn't really settled into our system yet.
He'll find his feet.
We'll see how he goes. I mean, I think Bellamy for me is probably like has built the best system. As a coach. Maybe Bennett has to go down as one of the great coaches because he's just got the history. He's just got the numbers of the years up. He is 74, whatever it is.
I know. It's crazy how old he is. You just kind of forget. He's kind of looked that old my whole life, though. I know, like, I've always seen him as looking basically 70 years old.
He's always looked old, yeah. But he's first.
Grumpy.
Yes. Yeah, he's always had a mood on him.
I get fascinated by that because I just wonder whether that's part of his persona, like not his real personality. Like I just got this.
It sounds like it.
Like that's what I'm going to give you, nothing.
And you see footage of him in the sheds after the game. You know, they got those sort of cameras up in the corners and stuff, and he's in there like dancing with all the boys. You're like, he seems like he's a bit of fun.
Put him in front of a real camera leader and he'll give you nothing.
Yes.
I mean, he treats everyone like the enemy. I reckon it'd be a nightmare to interview.
Oh, yeah.
Like a nightmare to interview.
Yeah.
I mean, I've often thought about reaching out to him to get him on the show. But
I reckon he'd probably be easier for someone like yourself who's got a profile and like, I think if he respects you, I think you're going to be good. If he doesn't know who you are, like if you're just a journalist, not that there's anything wrong with that, but in the fucking power dynamic, he's going to just be like, whatever.
Timing, probably everything as well.
Yeah. Well, that's it. If you get him after a big win, he might be a little more friendly.
You're not going to get much in grand final week, for example. You know what I mean?
No.
He's a genius at working out that power dynamic, isn't he?
Yeah.
And I reckon that's one of his great strengths in terms of players. He sort of assumes the godfather position. It helps if you're older and you've been around doing this shit for a long time, but he assumes the godfather position quite easily. And then he can get people to play for him. Because, I mean, my view on a great coach is a great coach is someone who can get everyone on the team to play, do their simple role, but play for me. I'm your coach. Gus was always good at that. Gus's oratory skills and rhetoric was just unbelievable. When he was coaching Origin, I was a sponsor, and Gus were mates, and he used to invite me downstairs, and I used to listen to him speak. It's like everyone's gobsmacked. Like you're literally sitting there listening to a barrister tear apart a witness. Like Gus should have been a barrister or something like that, because you can't take your eyes off him, and you can't stop listening to him. It's mesmerizing.
Yeah.
And he would have them run out and play for him based on what he said just at the beginning of the game.
Also, like with these older coaches, I imagine it would be very difficult, especially like if you use Wayne as an example. He's 74 and he's trying to relate to like 19-year-olds, and just actually trying to do that. I imagine that would just be difficult generally if you're just a person, right? But like everyone's got their different idiosyncrasies, different things going on at home, whatever else. But you've got this 74-year-old and like a 19-year-old, and they're getting on just like friends, Like I just find that interesting, and I assume is got to be some quality
it's pretty
he
unusual
has. Yeah.
Too, but it is Wayne Bennett. So
Yes.
he walks in, it's Wayne Bennett.
Yes.
It's fuck. Like, because like we're talking about it, they would be thinking it too, because they don't know who's a better coach or Wayne, but they don't know anything about Bellamy, and all of a sudden Wayne Bennett walks in the room. That sort of brings me to, the topic is getting talked about all the time at the moment. What do you reckon is going to happen with New South Wales origin side? I mean, you're New South Welshman. Do you think Freddie will keep coaching? What do you think is going to happen?
I think that it's been a tough couple of years for Freddie. And again, everything I'm saying here is based on my vibe of him in the media, to be honest. We always talk about it. He came in when he first started, he was the shoes off, sort of like almost hippie, earthy,
wearing
relaxed,
skivvies in the coach's box.
skivvy. He was wearing all black.
The
boys had walked to the field from the hotel. Like they were he just felt very calm and
a sensitive new age coach.
It's exactly how I'd put it. And he'd obviously come through the pathway system and done a lot for New South Wales Rugby League. And he just seemed to get it. And he seemed to have a really clear idea of how he wanted to play and the way that he wanted the boys to carry on. It feels to me, at least, and to Tom as well, like he's lost sort of that early time mentality. And he seems quite bitter almost now, a bit angry, a bit jaded by the media and people's perception on how he's been going. And he bites back a lot more. And the same, I think, can be said of Brandy. I think the same could be said of Joey, quite frankly. And I just don't know.
As the team coaching
staff.
staff.
As the team coaching staff. Obviously, there's other coaching staff. I'm referring to those three because they're often in the media. But it feels like the culture's changed a little bit, or the atmosphere's changed.
It's also juxtaposed by Billy Slater, who just is like couldn't be cooler and calmer and like better looking right now. Like he's just killing it, and like obviously his team's going well, but there's just the way he speaks. Just so you hear him speak in the media, and you're like, yeah, okay, I'm jealous of Queensland. This guy's
100%.
awesome.
But he's the winner though.
It's much easier to do so. It's much easier to do
but
so.
Freddie was a winner too, and he started a winner. That's why it's so hard. And then people, I think the final thing for me is that people's opinion, who I respect from a rugby league perspective, like Matty Johns or the rugby league guru, I'm not sure if you've heard of him, but just really sharp rugby league minds, don't often understand what his selection criteria is based on, what his bench rotation sort of strategy is. Like a lot of things don't make sense to them, which makes me sort of question what's going on.
Do you think Freddie should, I'm going to give it away for a while now, or I'm out, or do you think he should wait to be
pushed,
booted? And if so, who the hell are they going to get?
Well, see, that's the thing.
problem.
The longer it goes on, I'm starting to think they won't get rid of him. Even though, like, I mean, if we get swept, maybe, as you said, I don't know who there's no one obvious.
Under the current rules.
Yeah. And also, like, New South Wales has had such a lean trot. Like, we had a couple of years, with Freddie, but, like, I think it's 4 out of the last 18 series that we've actually won. So there isn't, like, Queensland, who have got this, like, treasure trove of greats, successful former greats that are all just there. Like, you could have Cam, you could have Billy, you could have Thurston, just as an example. Or Cooper, exactly. Whereas we are sort of the names that we're getting thrown around. I hear Gal thrown around. No disrespect to Gal, but I just had never thought of him as a coach. Mick Ennis, James Maloney. I'm just sort of like, is this, no disrespect again to those guys, but I'm like, is this all we fucking got? Like, I'd be going, like, everyone else is like, get Matty to do it. Matty's like, yeah, right. Like, I'm going to ruin my life.
He makes too much money.
Exactly.
He'd be great though, Matty.
No, he would be.
He'd be unbelievable.
But why would he do it?
He wouldn't.
There's no point doing it.
No.
Fucking, you're pulling
Life's
the pants
too
down
good.
big time.
100%.
Like you're going to spanked hard.
Yeah.
Like, but the media's going to go for you too.
Yeah.
Particularly given he's got the Fox affiliation. So every other media outlet's going to go for him.
Smash him.
He's going to be. He's too smart for that.
Yeah.
And I just think Freddie needs to refresh.
Mm.
I think he's one of the smartest footballers we've ever had in New South Wales, that is. And I think people really relate to him, but he does feel the pain of the media. And he's actually a sensitive guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't show it, but he's a very sensitive guy.
Yeah,
and,
right.
And which is why everyone loves him.
Yeah.
Because the players really relate to him.
Mm.
But he's feeling the shit.
Yeah.
And he imagine walking around knowing that everybody wants to cut your legs from under you. That's fucked up.
No, mate. Look, I can only imagine what it'd be like. Like we have like maybe once in our entire history received like any form of minor backlash. And even though like, it wasn't that bad, you're still like, Jesus Christ, this isn't fun. So I can only imagine what it's like if you got a whole state who are just like, calling for your head.
It's a bit like we were talking about the cricket though. That's the mentality of the audience.
Yes.
fuck him off. Get
Exactly.
rid of him. Give
Yeah,
us
yeah,
the
yeah.
next bloke.
Seriously.
And who is the next bloke?
Yeah.
I mean, and one of the things about Freddie too, which would be frustrating, is Freddie, when he used to get criticised when he played, and don't worry, he had plenty of criticism. I remember the time he got pissed. He didn't turn up he was captain of the Australian side, didn't turn up to a press conference, and lots of shit happened to him. But he was always able to get on the field and take control because there he's in control.
Yes.
He just say, "Fuck you, I'm going to score a try
That's
here."
like Warney.
Yeah, correct. Like Warney.
Where it's like, you're great. So you're allowed to get away with everything.
I can sort this.
Yeah.
I'll remedy the issue.
Yeah.
Joey a bit the same.
Joey's
as
the
well,
same.
yeah.
I'll just fucking turn around on you.
Yeah.
And you got nothing.
And that again is what is great about the Australian sports fan, in that there is just this gross double standard. As long as you're playing well, I don't give a fuck what you do.
Yeah.
But if you're out of form,
Yeah. Well, then we've got issues.
We're coming for you.
Yeah, we're coming for you in a big way.
yeah.
Oh, man.
I really appreciate you coming in, but I'm totally looking forward to coming on your show. For me, Hello Sports is one of those, for me, levity moments in what otherwise would be a fairly boring life for me. So thanks very much for the entertainment.
Hey,
Thank you
thank
very
you.
much.
Thanks for
Appreciate
having
it.
us.